Welcome to today's video on supply chain moments. Ask anyone in these times of crises, and one topic that will light a spark will be the international shortage of semiconductors. Semiconductors affect our everyday life and are in use in more areas than one would expect, from light switches and toasters to cars and even nuclear power plants. Semiconductors provide the necessary computational power to perform the necessary tasks ensuring functionality, usability, and safety, and serve as the backbone of our modern society. The industry that has been affected most by the shortage is the automotive industry. Just as many other crises these days, the shortage in semiconductors is partly a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, but also a result of the internationally connected and distributed tasks during the design, sourcing, and production of semiconductors. Further, the dependence on the Asian continent, as well as China, potentially purposefully reducing the access to a supply of raw materials and base components, which are only sourced and manufactured in China, will further intensify the problem. Coming back to the automotive industry, which to some extent caused its own problems by canceling orders on several parts, including microcontrollers, due to the lack of demand in the wake of a global pandemic. However, when the demand increased once more, the supply curve did not catch up, creating a shortage in the process. How and why the automotive industry has been hit the hardest by this shortage will be the main topic of today's video. The main questions that now arise are the following. 1. Why was supply unable to meet the increase in demand? 2. Who is to blame for the shortage? And 3. What can be done now and what is necessary to avoid similar situations in the future? The short answer to the first question is that the production of semiconductors is difficult, both technically and from a scaling perspective, meaning that once you have reduced the production capacity, increasing it once more is difficult. The real answer rests with the global supply structure of semiconductor production, which split activities internationally, but is highly dependent on resource availability from the Asian continent. Prominent manufacturers like Samsung, Hynix, or TSMC produce semiconductors and make up the majority of international production, but are still dependent on power components or microcontrollers from Renesas, ST, or NXP. Now we know the main issue regarding the production of semiconductors, but who is to blame for the supply problems in the automotive industry? Partly the market, and partly the OEMs, that is, the manufacturer and designers of automobiles. The market is to blame in not providing the supply necessary to fulfill the market as previously discussed. The OEMs are to blame for their response to the expected decline in demand and the design of the architecture in their vehicles. The OEMs quickly canceled their orders of semiconductors and microcontrollers following the events of the COVID-19 pandemic, but were slow to reorder, which resulted in extremely long lead times and repeating undersupply in their factories. This situation is further intensified by the fact that production facilities, as well as ports and distribution centers, were closed and misaligned in the wake of the pandemic. Further, the IT architecture of current automobiles is mostly decentralized, using older hardware and lots of microcontrollers. This increases the impact on the shortages as older hardware in general is less likely to be produced in the first place, and decentralized IT architectures are heavily reliant on microcontrollers, which are hard to source. But what can be done now, and what is necessary to avoid similar situations in the future? This will be covered by talking about the following 3 topics. 1. Produce and scale. 2. Change sourcing behavior. 3. Reduce dependence in design. At the moment, the focus should be on producing and scaling semiconductors internationally. Short-term options for the semiconductor industry are next to non-existent at this point in time. But long-term, through international collaboration and partnerships, both the technological standard and the manufacturing capacity, including the up and downscaling of production capacity, will be significantly improved. This would go hand in hand with a generally more decentralized international supply chain dissimilar to the current one. But as it stands right now, it seems that the disruption is focused more on politics and power than on reason and efficient response, as the crisis continues to rage in all sorts of industries. Coming back to the automotive industry, which needs to change the sourcing behavior of its strategic assets from focusing on pressure and power dominance to strategic partnerships. This will help to convey semiconductors as a major resource in its production lines, as well as a strategic asset to fulfill the now technology-oriented requirements of automobiles. Further, the IT architecture of cars needs to be modernized and centralized, which will not only increase the financial and technological performance, but also increase the international supply satisfaction long term. In summary, the semiconductor shortage is a worldwide problem which affected the automotive industry in particular. But both operative and strategic measures on an international level will make sure that similar semiconductor shortages will be avoided, and the current situation will be eased. Thank you for watching, subscribe below, and turn on notifications. See you in our next video.